India wants work, it wants a lifestyle, and it wants to see itself as one of the most stable market economies in the world.
Direct selling in India is all set for New India. We have seen young people joining the direct selling industry as an entrepreneur. And if you see the age bracket of 25, they are taking it direct selling industry as a very serious industry.
Today, India aspires to create the Naya Bharat, where dreams and aspirations are destined to become reality. Direct selling, since its inception, has been one of the driving factors behind India's post-liberalized economy. The ease of doing business in New India, coupled with government schemes such as Make in India, Skill India, Startup India, and others, have uplifted the entrepreneurial spirit in the country. With direct selling and its progressive stature, the industry has also been especially aided by monetary institutions via financial inclusion. The direct selling industry is a thought leader and is among few industries who have been a pioneer in empowering women in the country.
So there are about 53% of the direct sellers, they are female workforce in direct selling industry. So it started as supplement income. So the ladies at home, those who don't have too much of option of working in office, they are taking it as an opportunity to really make some supplemental income for themselves.
Direct selling has not only proved to be one of the leading employment and work-generating sector, but also is miles ahead of other predominant sectors in the market in terms of job and wealth creation.
Government is planning to push around 500 million of skilled workers by 2022. I think this particular sector has a potential to provide kind of mass empowerment and livelihood for people.
The combination of direct selling and entrepreneurship have not only helped MSMEs and SMEs, but it also helped in giving growth objective to Indian economy.
So the New India is all about Make in India, fair enough. So what is the direct selling company coming to us for? They could have gone to the big guys. They want new entrepreneurs who are coming up, who want to put up the setups. And so direct selling companies want people like us or maybe others to put up a goods manufacturing facility in India as per international standards.
The Department of Consumer Affairs, Government of India, had notified the direct selling guidelines in 2016.
Connecting with state governments for the last, I would say, 10-12 years, if not more, and holding workshops, round-table conferences, one-on-one meetings to speak to the regulators, speak to various state governments and the centre as well, to explain the difference between what are the characteristics of a good direct selling entity.
The Indian Direct Selling Association, the only organization meant for benefiting direct selling industry, has taken great initiative in promoting the government initiative at a grassroots level.
See, we have seen the growth in direct selling industry in the last 5 years by 16%, and we also see that they are having expected growth by 300% in 2025. So we have also grown along with the direct selling industries growing in the market, and we expect that we will further grow.
The Indian direct selling industry has witnessed exponential growth in the last few years as a result of several reforms by the government.
IDSA will extend its reach and educate consumers, common public about important issues like distinguishing between a genuine direct selling company and fly-by-night operators, consumer protection law and the consumer rights under the Consumer Protection Act 2019.
The strong policy-making capabilities and under the strong leadership and guidance of our Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi, the direct selling industry is on its way to contribute towards a progressive economy and to deliver what the world is going to see as the Naya Bharat.
Good evening. Welcome to all our viewers who have joined us since morning today. Welcome to the third session as IDSA celebrates National Nutrition Week from September 1st to September 7th. And as we have been discussing with you since the morning, nutrition segment, wellness segment holds a very special place for the direct selling industry in India. This whole concept of National Nutrition Week was started by our former Prime Minister, late Srimati Indira Gandhi ji, in 1982 to highlight the importance of good nutrition. And I think there's no second thought about the fact that proper nutrition is essential for a happy and healthy life. It is vital for overall development of the mind and body. Now, direct selling industry, not just in India but globally, has been contributing to spread the message about the importance of a nutritious diet or importance of nutrition in living a healthy lifestyle. In India, for example, over 57% of the gross direct selling sales is coming from the wellness segment alone. Almost every direct selling entity has wellness products in their product portfolio, or if they don't have, they are planning to introduce it in future. So we discussed in the morning about in the first session about the nutrition requirements for children. In the second session, we discussed the general why nutrition is important for the healthy lifestyle. Now, with this third very special edition for the first day of the National Nutrition Week, we are going to have a live discussion on nutritional requirements for endurance training. And let me just quickly introduce our first guest for the show. He's our in-house endurance sport expert. He's our vice chairman, Mr. Rajat Banerjee. Welcome, sir.
Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Chetan, for the nice intro.
Right, sir. And from this, I hand over the platform to you, sir. You can carry on with the show.
Thank you so much. Well, viewers, very warm good evening, good afternoon to you all from here in Gurgaon in CR. As Chetan outlined, this is a very important week for us, and we've tried to bring a kind of a bouquet of offerings for you all. Today, I am very pleased to introduce in this session Mr. Mohit Chobey. I hope Chetan can put him on screen as soon as possible. Well, very briefly, Mr. Mohit Chobey has been a corporate leader for the past 2 decades. And as far as we are concerned, I think why he's here today is that he's an ultra marathoner and Ironman. Done several Ironmans, I believe 4 or 5 in one calendar year, Mohit. Maybe you'll correct me as I go
Yeah,
along.
I ended up doing 5 of them in 12 months.
Unbelievable. So we'll come there in a second. If you could just complete your introduction. Mohit is also a TEDx speaker and as well as an author. So I think we'll just come straight to the discussion, Mohit, because I think you're far more interesting in person than me just reading out a bit about yourself. So once again, welcome to the IDSA platform today. And just I'll probably just quickly hand over to you if you wish to say a couple of words of greetings to our viewership.
Sure. Thank you, Rajat. Thanks for having me on the show. Thanks for putting me across to so many people across the country. I'm very impressed and thankful for being invited by IDSA. I have been a sales professional for a very long period. My more than 2 decades of career have spanned extensively on the sales side, which means that I kind of resonate and understand the way most of the agents approach the customers and how they would like to be equipped with the right set of products. For me, since I've started industries across FMCG, insurance, banking, hospitality, and e-commerce, I think I've kind of done it all on the corporate side of things. So I hope I'm able to kind of learn from this. At the same time, if there are any questions pertaining to that, happy to answer that. Obviously, the main focus of the conversation will be in terms of health and nutrition. And during my journey, I will be happy to kind of take you through what has worked for me and what has not worked for me. There have been some pitfalls and there have been some successes.
Great. That gives me a cue to my first question. You know, many of us do know what a marathon is. We do know what a half marathon is. Some of us might know what an ultra marathon is, and even lesser among us might know what an Ironman is. So I'll leave it to you to take us through your journey of this fantastic journey. I mean, being someone who's into this sport in a very, very small way myself, I do understand the kind of the determination required, the kind of disciplining required. How did it start, and where did you start, Mohit?
So I think the journey commenced in 2008. I had gone to the Himalayas to kind of clear my head. And during the process, I ended up going for a trek to Pindari Glacier. So over a period of 5 days, we ended up covering more than 90 kilometers on foot with backpacks. And after I finished the trek, I kind of gave myself a pat on the back, because being in the corporate world, I had not really focused too much on health and fitness. And I was surprised that I could kind of, walk for 90 kilometers with so much of weight behind my back. And as so luck will have it, when I landed back in Bombay, the first billboard I noticed was the Standard Chartered Mumbai Marathon. And that kind of sparked in me that if I can walk for 5 days over the mountains, there's definitely something in me which can make me run for 21 kilometers. So that's where the first time I ended up enrolling for the half marathon, the 21-kilometer journey.
And how many days did you have to train for the 21-kilometer run?
That was, very honestly, there was no coaching. Google had not become that vibrant. There were not many groups. So all of the training was self, and most of the training happened late in the night. I used to come back from office at around 8 in the evening, and around 8:30 I used to hit the roads. Thankfully, I had some vacant area where I could run. So 8:30 in the night or 9 in the night, I used to start, and I used to run till 10 in the night. And I think I ended up training for 4 months to finish my first half marathon, and I was jubilant after I finished that run, and it felt like I had conquered the world.
Wonderful. So a half marathon is 21 kilometers for our viewership, and a full marathon would be
42.2 kilometers, and I traversed the journey to the full marathon in 2012.
Okay.
So for a full 3 years, I was kind of fencing with the idea of doing a full marathon, till one day one of my friends, in full motivation and being a comrade with me, ended up getting me and himself registered for the full marathon. So we said, okay, if we have to dive into the deep waters, let's do it together. Maybe we'll be able to hold each other's hand. And I think the push from him made me run the full marathon. I still remember this was 2012, and I didn't tell my mother that I'm doing a 42-kilometer run, because her idea of running 21 kilometers was anyways pushing things a bit too far. So I said, okay, let me keep it under wraps, and let me do the 42-kilometer run and tell her after I finish it. It just so happens that nowadays when I don't do an Ironman, she asks me, how come you're not doing any more Ironman? And I have to tell her that it's COVID and I can't travel. So things have changed a lot.
So wonderful. So half marathons, 21 kilometers, full marathons, 42 plus. What is an Ironman for our viewership again? What is an Ironman? What do you do?
Okay, so besides the fact that my son loves the Ironman movies, there's something called the Ironman triathlon. It started approximately 50 years back in the island of Hawaii, and it was done by the US Marines. It's a triathlon, basically a triathlon which comprises of 3.8 kilometers of swimming in an open water, typically an ocean or the lake. And after you come out of the water, you have to cycle for 180 kilometers. The terrain can be good, bad, or whatever it is. And then eventually you finish the event with a 42.2 kilometer of run, a full marathon. So you end up doing a 226 kilometer journey in a matter of around 16 odd hours. That's typically what's the time limit for an Ironman. And once you finish it, you have kind of crossed over to a different threshold. And I think so you start looking at things in a different manner. Not just about yourself, but about everything around, beyond you and around you, suddenly starts looking different.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've hit the nail pretty much on the head when you say you see things differently. I mean, I see you as a Superman right now. I mean, Ironman. Come again, you said 3.8 kilometers of swimming, 180 kilometers of cycling, and 42 plus kilometers running, all back to back, one behind the other.
All back to back. And the time limit is 17 hours. You have to finish it. Some races have a shorter period of 15 and a half hours. You have to finish it. So it's quite a challenge. And I think it's also a mental challenge, because what happens is, besides the endurance part, the difficult aspect is when you're in the ocean. It's not a pool, and it has a life of its own. So whether it's a lake or an ocean or a river, and things can go pretty hard, pretty fast. I mean, I still remember my first Ironman in Malaysia. I had specifically chosen that location because it was a fairly protected beach, but the gods wanted me to be really tested. So in the last 1 kilometer of the swim, they ensured a massive storm. It was so massive a storm that we thought, forget about being an Iron Man, we might end up being a dead man. But as luck would have it, we ended up finishing the swim. And even before the event organizer could give me the medal, mentally in my mind, I had proclaimed myself to be an Ironman because of the swim aspect of it. So that's where it gets a bit tricky beyond the endurance, running endurance events. Because in running endurance event, you can stop.
Exactly. Yeah. Swimming, there's no.
You can't stop.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll come to the events part subsequently again. Now, obviously, when you are doing any endurance sport, whether it's a half marathon, an ultra marathon, or an Ironman, what kind of disciplining in your life does one require from, let's say, the nutrition perspective? Let's touch about nutrition first, because this is
Absolutely.
the nutrition week. So what basic changes does one need to do?
I think the first, forget about the changes. The first thing you need to do is you need to start having holistic meals and not go for diets. I have this fundamental philosophy that you don't need to adhere to specific diets, and a lot of those fads are going on across the world, and people pick it up for losing weight, etc., etc. I'm not a proponent of any of those guys. I believe that the first ingredient into a healthy lifestyle and into an endurance sport is having a holistic meal. Having said that, you do need certain supplements to ensure that your body is running at the optimum level. Uh, you need a lot of things to ensure that your repairing of your muscles happen. So you do end up taking whey protein. I think so that's critical, and especially for people who are vegetarians or vegans, whey protein becomes paramount, because that's the way of ensuring that you don't lose muscles, especially for people over 40 years. Besides that, you also ensure iron supplements, you ensure vitamin D, you ensure multivitamins, and all those elements become very relevant. You'll be surprised that how many ultra runners are actually anemic. And the reason ultra runners are anemic is because a lot of iron loss happens through sweat. And that's why if you are not taking a holistic meal, or you're not taking supplements in the form of iron supplements, you end up putting yourself at a bit of a risk. And in winters, especially in India, northern part of India, vitamin D becomes a big issue. So those are some of the nutritional supplements which you need to take. But I'll reinstate the primary point, which is having holistic food and not going into any diets.
That's wonderful to hear, because yes, like Chetan did introduce, this industry does, more than 50% of its turnover comes from supplementation. So I guess those of us who are either live right now or listen to us later on will take this back from an Iron Man of significant achievement, Mr. Mohit Chobey, that look, guys, if you set your mind to something as impossible as it might seem when you start off, you can achieve it. Number one. Number two, discipline or rather watch what you eat. You have clear holistic meals and don't ignore your supplementation. Okay, Mohit. Now, let's look at the other elements. Just a bit about myself. I did my first marathon in 2006, but unlike you took it to a different level. I just let it, wander in that, and I'm quite satisfied with it. We'll chat up about a few possibilities later on, I'm sure. So, what kind of discipline does? See, you held a regular job when you started training. This is what I hear.
Yeah, all throughout, I have been a corporate professional. All throughout, I have been a corporate professional.
So, what did you need to tweak in your lifestyle to bring in this element into your life?
So I'll give you a metaphor. Normally, when we go for parties, there's a big buffet out there, and there is a tendency in many people to try and pick up all the dishes, or to try as many dishes as possible. I think so. The same is about life. We need to pick and choose what is our focus area going to be. In terms of training for endurance events, which take a lot of your time, what you need to do is you need to focus on only the key activities. Profession becomes primary because that's your bread and butter. Family is obviously the overall scheme of things. Your socializing definitely reduces. The only socializing you might do is while you're running or while you're cycling or while you're going for a swim. That's the primary socializing which will happen. Your weekends will be packed. So in most endurance running, Saturdays and Sundays are when you really kind of uh, do extra hours. You end up running for maybe 4 or 5 hours. I mean, a typical Ironman training requires me on a Saturday and Sunday not less than a 6 hour of workout, with 2 hours on a Saturday and a 4 hour on a Sunday. And during the remaining part of the week, it will be maybe 1 or 2 hours every day, which is not difficult. It's provided you have reduced the clutter in your life, your focus is very clear, and you're committed to doing the same. Your association with alcohol also becomes increasingly how do you say, the gap keeps on increasing because you cannot really get up in the morning feeling woozy or for that matter gaining unnecessary weight. So your lifestyle becomes much more harmonized. Your mind and body is much more harmonized. You focus on things which really matter to you, and I think so that's how you end up optimizing on these various aspects.
Yeah, in fact, it's this is what even I hear and have experienced as well. And maybe I'd certainly like you to elaborate more on it. That once you do these kind of things, since you, like you said, you are able to prioritize for yourself. You tend to prioritize everything accordance. So you know that you have limited time with your family, so you give it, that kind of energy. So as with your work. So how harmonized was this effort? I mean, was it very difficult? How much
It was
family?
difficult. It was very difficult because also I had to drive to work and my workplace was not very close. So I think so. In terms of that 1 year was grueling for me because I think so. I ended up biting quite a lot. It was obviously in preparation for an Ultraman, which I was supposed to do in Florida last year, but at the last minute I could not go and do that. It did stretch me completely. But if you're into ultra marathon running, surprisingly, ultra marathons take much lesser time than Ironman. Simply for one reason: you're out here, you're doing three different sports. So the time commitment which is required, the logistics which is required, makes it a bit more tedious and makes it a bit more complicated. So the 1 year in which I did the 5 events, it stretched me completely. Sometimes I've had done business calls while cycling on KMP, which is the Kundli Manesar Palwal highway, and suddenly I get a call from my CEO from the office, and I park my cycle on the side, and my Garmin has to pause because the Garmin needs to be paused. That's very important. And after that, I've been on a call for a half an hour or 1 hour, and then I finish the call and I get back on the cycle and I start cycling. So you need to be very flexible in your mind and adaptable in your mind to be able to toggle between what your focus needs to be. So if work is required and I need to be on that call, I will be on that call even if I'm on a Jaipur highway cycling, and I'll park my cycle and I'll do the work and then I come back. It also builds a lot of endurance in your mind. Your capability to focus on the moment becomes immense.
So you're a TEDx speaker. So this element that you just mentioned, I think people will be curious to know because of course nowadays there is greater appreciation for stuff like endurance sports and trekking, etc. But how much does it, how much does it, from the TEDx element, let's say the TEDx speeches that you've given, what did you share with your audience? What were they, looking for when they came to listen to you?
So when I was approached for one TEDx talk, the topic I picked up was how endurance sports are essential for budding CEOs and existing CXOs. And they were quite aghast. I said, what are you talking about? How can CXOs and CEOs give so much of time to this? So I did extensive research on that. And I said, the simple takeaway is that if I look at S&P 500 index in the US, and I look at the companies in which CEOs are marathon runners, on an average, the stock price of those companies is 5% higher. That converts to some $150 billion. So merely being a marathon runner ensures that the value you're creating for the organization is superlative. And then I dug deeper. And the reason is because the kind of skills which it helps incorporate in you and inculcate in you are the same skills which are life skills and hence reflective in your work schedule, reflected in your the assignments, the responsibilities which you carry, and they get carried forward there. I actually got delved so deep that eventually I ended up coming out with a book called 1,000 Kilometers to Leadership, which is on my comrades marathon in South Africa. And the reason 1,000 kilometers, because basically before running the 90-kilometer ultra marathon over mountains, you need to train for at least 1,000 kilometers before you can kind of be ready in the last 4 months. So it's kind of a threshold number before you can, really go forward and try to run that race. And for me, it was a big learning. Although I did the first Comrades Marathon in 2014, and I released the book last year, but it was also a follow-up on my TEDx speech that for being great leaders, one of the things which can help you significantly is if you are into endurance sports. It's not the only way, but it is one of the good ways of taking care of your mental health, your physical health, but more importantly, giving you that edge as far as being a leader is concerned.
Would you care to show us the cover of your book if it's handy?
I will try and show that. Okay, I think. Yeah, I just one second.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know how it will show inverted or not. Sorry. Can you see it? It's visible?
Yeah. 1,000 kms to Leadership by Mohit.
So it's 1,000 kilometers to leadership, and you can see the runner. So
Yeah.
And this has been a bestseller on Amazon. So Amazon, it really did very well on Amazon. This is the first of my trilogy of books. The other two books are also on endurance sports, and they are supposed to come out in the coming year.
Okay, so sometime back you did mention that you did 5 Ironmans in a year. Where all did you do these events?
I did, the first one was Indonesia. The second was Malaysia. The third was Australia. The fourth was Kazakhstan. The fifth was Italy.
Wow, all in a
13-month period. So the ones in Kazakhstan and the ones in Indonesia were the half Ironman, the 70.3 version. And the full Ironman was Malaysia, Australia, and Italy.
And do you have any such events in India, perchance?
We did have the first half Ironman event in India in 2019 November. And the idea was for it to be happening at a regular frequency. Obviously, COVID, the pandemic hit everything badly. So it's not happened last year. Unlikely for it to happen this year. It happened in Goa the first year it was there. I actually have also participated in France for my first Ironman. And that was unsuccessful because I got disqualified. So I got disqualified because I swam more than required and I missed the time cutoff.
Oh gosh. And what was...
it can be a hard taskmaster.
Yeah, but I think what we all
I lost you for a minute.
Sure.
No, proceed. I can hear you now. There was a lag.
Oh gosh, okay. No, so yeah, so like I was saying, this is true about life. I think there's nothing like a failure as such. I mean, these are just temporary setbacks that teach us more, and as you can see in your case, led you to spectacular heights. And someone who's flirted with this particular community of endurance athletes, I can see that, and that's huge. Why don't you tell our viewers a bit about? You said something about a run called Comrades. What is this, please?
Comrades is run between the cities of Pietermaritzburg and Durban in South Africa. And this has been happening since 1923 or 1924. It's the largest ultra marathon in the world. It was to commemorate the fallen soldiers of World War I. And this happens alternatively between the two cities. So one year you run from Pietermaritzburg to Durban, and the other year from Durban to Pietermaritzburg. A distance of approximately 90 kilometers to be finished under 12 hours. And trust me, it's a very mountainous terrain, because when you're running from Durban to Pietermaritzburg, you end up climbing nothing less than 6,500 feet. To give you a perspective, just to train for this Comrades Marathon, I ran Dehradun, Mussoorie and back as a practice run.
Wow.
So this is how grueling that run can be, but it is the most anticipated, and it's a carnival in itself. You see 20,000 runners, 20,000 runners
From
running
all
this
across the world.
gruesome distance, but it is an mind-blowing and an impeccable event, and something which you kind of relish the rest of your life.
So, okay, now coming back to, I'll keep slipping back into nutrition once in a while because that's the, idea. So, how much do you have to change your nutrition or your diet during training? See, I guess there would be moments where you're, like, let's say 1 month short of an event, you must be peaking, both in terms of your practice as well as watching your nutrition. Is there any difference, or is your nutrition and supplementation kind of even throughout the year?
Your supplementation, actually, what happens is the supplementation does not change significantly. What does change is closer to your race day, your starchy products increase. You start taking in more carbohydrates, and typically which are complex carbohydrates, because you don't want a high glycemic index. You want the reservoir of glycogen in your body to kind of keep rising up, so that on race day there is sufficient glycogen for it to sail through. Most of us have experienced that there's something called a runner's wall, and many of us experience that at the 32nd kilometer mark for whatever reasons, because that's the amount of glycogen which is inbuilt in the body, unless the body has external inputs going into it, or it moves into fat burning mode. And fat burning mode is not easy for most of the human body, and that's the reason it's the last to burn, because that's a survival instinct for the body. So it really doesn't change, but you move into starchy products, you move into carbohydrates which are more complex and with a low glycemic index. What also happens is, closer to the race day, you start moving away from sweets. Not that you have been gorging on them, but you start kind of keeping them away, because you want your body weight to be at an optimum level. Because at the end of the day, every kilo you pack on your back or wherever, whichever body part, if it's not muscle mass, it's not really adding value to you.
True. So do you kind of need to consult with a specialist, a nutritionist, or someone who helps you through it, or is it all self-taught in your case?
In my case, actually, it's been a combination of self-taught and coaching. So I have a Ironman coach. My earlier Ironman coach he's done 20 times. He's one of the Kona qualifiers. So he's an exceptional athlete himself. So you end up learning quite a lot on your own. You end up learning through your friends. You end up learning through your coaches. And when you go internationally and do the events, you end up learning a bit more out there, because you get exposed to different ways how people are kind of keeping track of their bodies, how they are kind of supplementing it, keeping it supported. So the learning is all encompassing across a broad spectrum of touch points.
Okay. Hey, why I asked you this question was, Mohit, because a lot of people who are probably watching this live or who will watch it later on are advising, let's say, running communities, are advising cycling communities. Maybe they have their own communities. I'm sure after this there'll be, I hope certainly that people will look out for Mr. Mohit Chobey and then look at your community as well, because the truth is that I'll not say you're a rare species. I mean, it's not easy to reach someone like you. I mean, I'm being honest out here, someone who does see. It's a different thing that if the Sports Authority of India selects a few kids, trains them for 8-10 years and hopes for a medal in a thing. What you are doing, pardon my saying, but certainly post 30, you certainly would be post 30, 35, I guess, thereabouts. This is something you're doing on your own.
Definitely.
This is something you're doing on your own, and I think our people would be curious to know about this community, this group of people, this self-driven people who got their own goals. While you do get a medal at the end of it, I don't think even at least in my case, my neighbors also didn't know about it. So it's something entirely for the self. So I do hope some of the listeners, some of the people who are watching us, I can see Amit Solanki, Sanjeev Bhattacharya, Janardhan Yadav, and many more, I'm sure, will now, broaden their research and look at this, at this, if you don't mind me saying, this target group, which deservedly, needs the best of, even supplementation from our perspective. Now,
So
let me
even the
see.
triathlon, there's an Olympic event also within the triathlon. So while we do the Ironman, the Olympics do have a triathlon event. It's a shorter duration. It's a
Okay.
1.5-kilometer swim and a 40-kilometer bike ride and a 10-kilometer run. So it's a crunched up version, but there is Olympics version of it also.
Okay, that's encouraging to hear. Okay, so what about the Indian context? Because I guess some of our viewership largely would be from the Indian context. If you were to, as a guru, talk to a viewership and saying that, okay, people, since half of you are into supplementation and into fitness products, you yourselves could become the product. You could become fit people and start doing ABC. If you're doing it damn good, great. But if you were to imagine that there are a lot of people who are not doing anything with it, what would you choose to tell them in the Indian context, given that everyone maybe can't go to to a comrades for an event? If they have to do something in their location, what would you tell them?
I will just tell them that each one of us does everything for our own limited context. I might have the wherewithal to go to a comrades, or that might be my aspiration. Rajat is happy doing a 50-kilometer run on his birthday. I might be keen on doing an ultra marathon, or I'm sorry, Ironman. The fact is, each one of us has different aspirations and fulfillment. But what we should really clearly think about is what works for us. At the end of the day, and you yourself captured it quite well, that for Mohit Chobey, it's not about the medal, it's not about even the neighbor knowing it, it's about a sense of self-fulfillment. And more importantly, it's about when women come and ask you how old you are, and they give you looks and they say you can't be, you're lying, you're not that old. So I think so that's the biggest. So I actually had an interview yesterday for one of my newly published books, and during the course of event, I ended up kind of disclosing my age. Post which the interviewer sent me a message, and she says, "Are you sure your age is that?" I said, "Yeah, it's that." So I hope you're not disappointed, but that's how it is. And this has happened a couple of times. Once the person says, he says, how come your skin is so good? I said, I don't know. I mean, this is the way I am. He says, for your age, it's quite good. I said, really no comments about it. But the fact is that for each one of us, we have a different aspiration. For each one of us, there is a certain sense of fulfillment. But health and fitness is paramount for individuals, whether it's not about Indian or being anybody else. It's about living a healthy and fulfilling and a long life and not really meandering the course. So I keep telling people, don't merely exist, start living. And living means that your body supports your mental aspirations. Your body is not restrictive about, restricts your dreams. It should not be restricting your dreams. It should propel them forward. And I think that's what my message will be. Please, whatever your opportunity is, even if it's going for a walk or doing a small jog or going, there are so many swimming pools which have opened for short. I learned swimming when I turned 30 years old. So it's not as if you need to be born with fins. At 30, I started swimming. So from the message from my side to the team and everybody is, health and fitness is not merely about feeling good in the body. It's about feeling good in the mind, and it's about transforming your personality. And that transformation of your personality will show in all aspects of your life, your career, your the way you engage with people. I think so. Each aspect will get significantly impacted.
Great. That's, I think, very wonderfully put, Mohit, and that leads me to probably the last leg of what I had in mind. See, so nutrition is one element is what we eat and what is for our body. What about the mind? How do you discipline yourself? Are you into meditation? Are you into yoga? Is that an important element in the entire process?
So there are two parts to it. The first is I find running itself meditation. So I've actually coined a term called meditation in motion. And because every time I'm running, the mind is getting completely empty. It's kind of goes into a mode of existentialist in nature. It does not think ahead. It does not think behind. It is just existing in that moment. Having said that, there are times when it needs an ignition point, and I found deep breathing to be fairly helpful. If I do deep breathing even for 5 minutes, I see a significant change in the level of stress in my body. My pulse rate goes down significantly. My body is much more relaxed. My muscles are not tensed up. And that gives me the mental space to be able to take decisions. Because often what happens is if we are stressed out, our ability to move forward in positive action gets severely hindered. And deep breathing kind of removes most of these cobwebs and allow you to think in a very comfortable and relaxed manner. So deep breathing works extensively for me.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing all your these all insights. I'm sure people must be just in awe just listening to you and your achievements. I certainly am. I think we've run through good about 30 minutes plus. So thank you so much, Mohit. Now I think I'll just call upon Chetan. I hope he's somewhere in the back rooms. Chetan, are you there? We'll be happy to take in any queries, any questions that may have come your way.
Yes, sir. So thank you so much, and it was great learning to both of you, especially to Mohit ji. So I think, sir, the like you said, you started swimming at the age of 30, and from there, reaching to a point where you did 5 Ironmans in 1 year is indeed commendable. So we are not going to get more into how old are you actually. So let's keep that a secret. So as such, I don't see any questions, sir. So in case I would like to remind our viewers, if you have any question to Mohit ji, किस तरह से अगर आप भी endurance sports को pursue करना चाहते हैं, उसके लिए क्या है? I think मोहित जी ने काफी तो आंसर कर ही दिया है कि आप अपना एज वगैरह मत सोचिए. 30 की एज में मोहित सर ने स्विमिंग सीखी है और वहां से वो आज इस प्लेस पर है जहां उन्होंने एक आयरन मैन जैसा टफ कंपटीशन साल में 5 बार उन्होंने अटेम्प्ट किया है. So I think this is commendable in itself, and so अगर आपका कोई भी क्वेश्चन है, so we will wait for another minute or so you can raise in the comment section of Facebook, YouTube or Twitter. Mohit, meanwhile, why don't you tell us something about your upcoming books also? What broadly they will be covering?
Yeah, so actually, my first book, like I said, 1,000 Kilometers to Leadership, is already there. It's based on Comrades Marathon as the backdrop, and with how it resonates with the corporate life. But actually, the whole thing started, Rajat, it might be of interest to you also. The whole thing started when I failed to do my first Ironman in France, and I ended up writing a blog called 10 Minutes Too Long. As a precursor to that failure in Ironman in France, I actually had a near drowning incident in Faridabad, where I was pulled out of the water and kind of survived to live another day. So when I failed in France, I had to kind of put it all down into paper, and I wrote a blog called 10 Minutes Too Long. So eventually I ended up writing my second book earlier than my first one, which is called Coming Back to Life, figuratively and literally, because I was saved by that lifeguard that day. And it also kind of changed the way I've looked at life ever since. And so the second book is already there, which is in the series called Coming Back to Life, but it will be published next year. And as a precursor, as a prologue, 1,000 Kilometers to Leadership came up because that was ingrained in my mind for a long period. The culminating book for this series is called Leap of Faith. That's when I finished my Ultraman. I think so that's the leap of faith which I've taken. But since I'm an author and I have a Fauji background, so I've also published a book recently called An Ungrateful Nation. I think to the youth and across the segments of population and readers, I'm sure they will enjoy that also.
Right, sir. Thank you so much. So, Ras sir, any final concluding comments from your side before we bring the session to an end?
Yeah,
you are our in-house expert. You are our in-house expert on the subject.
It's more like a personal one, Mohit. Have your children kind of taken after you?
So my younger son did something interesting. When he was 6 years old, he ran his first 5 kilometers.
How old is he now?
And he's 12 now. And nowadays, he still runs the 5 kilometer and he does it in around 26-27 minutes. So not bad.
We'll probably get there soon.
Get there.
Wonderful, absolutely.
Thank you so much for
Mohit. Sorry, Chetan was saying something. Chetan, please go ahead.
No, sir. I was about to conclude also. I mean, yeah. So there is one question from our viewer who joined us from Facebook, Anand Sethi. So I'm just putting the question on screen. So Anand Sethi is interested knowing after 50, how do we go about with our fitness programs? So Moji, question for you.
Okay, so first qualifier. I'm not equipped to handle after 50, but I will still answer it. After 50, I think so. For any fitness program, you first need to, I think so, connect with your similar-minded people or go to an expert and take some guidance from there. More importantly, start doing simple stuff. Start going for walks. Start running and walking. Check out how the gym looks like. Are there trainers there? See your environment, scan it, and start taking baby steps. It's perfectly okay to do baby steps. And just for all of your reference, Milind Soman is 56. So 50 plus is a misnomer. And at 56, I think so, he runs 100 kilometers as if it's like a walk in the park. So I think so for Indians, all of us need to remove this perception of 50 and or rather age. Also, to give you an example, last time I did my Ironman in Italy, one Japanese gentleman was ahead of me in cycling, and his age was merely 73.
Yeah, there you go.
In
fact, I can share one personal anecdote as well, Chetan. You know, my inspiration in 2005. I read this article of a retired Indian Air Force officer. I think his name was Wing Commander Sanyal. Mohit, maybe the name will ring a bell to you. I think it was Wing Commander Sanyal. And I read an interview of his, Chetan, where he ran his first half marathon at age 65. He started training at age 65. And I was 35. I said, wow, I mean, if this gentleman can do it at 65, at 35, I can, put on my running shoes. So yeah, Mohit, I think you're right. There's nothing like an age. So coming back to Anand Shetty ji, Anand ji, उम्र का कोई ये है नहीं, स्टार्ट पॉइंट है नहीं. अगर आप ठान ले कि आपको कुछ करना है, तो मोहित चौबे जैसे हमारे इंस्पिरेशन हमारे सामने ही है. We can do anything. That's the truth. That is the truth. The human body and mind are amazing pieces of equipment, actually.
Right, sir. So with this, we bring this session to an end. Thank you so much to all our viewers who joined us for this special session with Rajat Banerjee and Mohit Chobey ji. And I'm sure आपने अपने notes लिए होंगे from the life of Mohit ji and from the experiences he shared with all of us. And do join us tomorrow for the next sessions in this whole weekly celebration of National Nutrition Week with IDSA. And do get vaccinated. As soon as possible. Vaccines are your best weapon against the pandemic. With these words, thank you so much once again for joining us this session. Good evening. Bye.
Thank you, Chetan.